Ooh.
Okay, I think we're good.
Oh,
I think we're good. How you doing? Ah, that's good. That's good. That's good. It's good to see your face, though. It's good to see your face.
no, likewise, likewise, likewise.
So
Like,
I'm gonna get this thing cracking. I'm gonna get this thing cracking. What's good, y'all? It's your boy Murdoch, back for yet another episode of Make It Make Sense Mondays. Extremely excited for today's conversation. We got an incredible individual, an incredible creative, a black creative who is unapologetically black and continues to create spaces for other black creatives. Before we get to that, I'm gonna get y'all some context. Y'all know I say that my oratorical mentor says a text without context is merely a pretext for conning people, and I'm not gonna con us out of an incredible opportunity to make it make sense, and sensational impact all across the senses. So, it's your boy Murdoch. I'm doing a whole lot, probably doing way too much. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm the founder of the Side Hustle Economy Company. And our mission is to empower Black side hustlers just like you to achieve their entrepreneurial dreams through the three E's: exposure, education, and equipment. And one of the ways in which we expose, because y'all got to understand, a lot of people don't dream by any means because they haven't seen something worth dreaming about. And I think that after you talk to somebody like who we're talking to today, you're going to find a new reason to dream because you're going to be inspired. And so Make It Make Sense Mondays exists for that sole purpose. And it's to expose us to other Black folks that inspire us to dream. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, my colleague, and fellow creative, Charlee Black, to kind of talk about all that Charlee has going on and what she's doing across the city. So can you start with introducing yourself and explaining um, why, how, and when you started your entrepreneurial journey? Because you're doing so much, but just can you start with that?
yes, can I say thank you? That was such an amazing introduction. Thank you. So my name is Charlee Black, born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana, West Side. And I'm just gonna I'm just gonna start this by saying is that I am a Sagittarius through and through. I'm very into the woo woo, which means I am a very stubborn person. So throughout this entire conversation, at least about my history, you will come back multiple times like, wow, that's you're stubborn. And it's like, yes, it's true, but it works for me. So I'm just gonna start with that. I have been a photographer for probably, I would say, the last 9 to 10 years. I started when I was like younger. My mom used to give me like little disposable cameras as a biweekly treat. So I've always had a love for crafting an image. But somewhere around my like late teens, early 20s, I was like, I really love fashion photography. But the truth of the matter is that makes you no money, at least in the Midwest. For me, it didn't make any money. And so I started to really drift into the commercial side. Well, the commercial side, let's say around like 2016 through 2018, had a very distinct look. That was also a very interesting time period where multiple large retailers and big brands made a lot of public mistakes when it came to representation and how they showed Black and brown people. That was the prime time of the H&M monkey, like on the, so it was a very distinct, it's a very distinct time. And I say it's a distinct time because it's how I started my business, which is Good Friends Studio. And we are an elevated production studio. So we work with fashion, beauty, wellness brands to craft them a visual foundation. So say you are a jewelry brand and you're in like your second year of business, but you don't have a defined voice. Well, if you just lived through the global pandemic that we all lived through, you realize that you needed to have solid visuals constantly. So what I do and what I do with the help of my good friends is we craft productions. We produce an entire array of photo, video, we do creative direction, things like that. And we really help these brands establish who they are visually on digital platforms. So I say all that to say, I started my business a little bit from that stubbornness and kind of being like, man, there aren't a lot of like Black and brown people on set. Man, it's a lot of like not Black people making decisions about what Black people are going to basically be represented back to themselves as. Because that's, if we're thinking about commercial and marketing, that's really what it is. How am I going to get this back to the consumer so that they can buy it? Well, I know for me, I'm not buying anything. I don't see anybody that looks like me. That's just how I am. That's how I was during that time period. And so I just kind of started my business like, I'm just going to do it myself. And I mean, of course, I wasn't trying to get like those large retailers. I wasn't trying to shoot for H&M, but I was more so trying to figure out how can I bring my voice and my unique look to commercial photography. So we've been doing that for about 3 years. It's been good. There's been kind of like a steady, trajectory, which is good. And then sometime last year, I was like, well, Good Friends needs a space. Like, we need a space. We are doing larger productions. We have larger budgets. Like, we need a physical space. So that led to the start of creating Blot, which is my physical studio space here in Indy. Official grand opening happening soon, but it is available for booking. And that was paired with also a little bit of stubbornness of not really seeing Indy does not have that many available photo rental spaces. We have a large photo community, a even larger video community, and then there are niche pockets in both of those fields. So I know for me personally, I love a tight aesthetic. I love cute visuals. I like, things very minimal. And so I wanted to create a space like that here because we didn't have it. So two things kind of out of, I'm going to do it myself, and kind of out of like, I have a love for photography and I always have. And I kind of want to make sure that other people have space because I didn't always have space. And I know how tedious that can be, especially being a Black woman, especially just being an indie in general. I mean, you can definitely attest to building something here and what that can be. So for me, it was kind of just being like, well, I'm just gonna do it and we'll see what happens. And I'm kind of just still seeing what happens.
Yeah, no, this is lovely. So what I appreciate you being honest and vulnerable and sharing your journey. And I think you talked about, stubbornness, and that's definitely, I'm sure, a part of it. But I think it's also stick-to-itiveness, which I think is required to be successful in this space. You know what I mean? And I think also, and this is not the space for that, just because we don't have the time for it. But let's also talk about stubbornness for Black folks does not look the same as it does for other folks. Because again, the world will call stubbornness, the world will call our stick-to-itiveness hard-headedness.
Yes. Yeah.
So it'll call for the majority stick-to-itiveness. It'll call it serving their niche. It'll call an entrepreneurial drive. It'll give these positive things to something that's actually required to be able to be successful. So I stand in support and solidarity, especially with you as a Black woman, to say amidst the stigmas, and whether you call it stubborn or stick-to-itive, I'm going to pursue my dream. Right. And that's what it is that you're doing. And again, to the people that are watching and listening, this is essential, right? Because you also got to go back to something that Charlie said. I don't want to ask about this, right? You started with fashion, and the fashion it was making sense and maybe the impact, but not the sense. And so then you switched to commercial. Can you kind of talk about how you made that transition? Because I know there's people watching that need to understand, okay, I love this, but it ain't doing what I need to do to continue to do it. So how do I transition to something that's actually helping me to pay my bills and pursue my passion? How'd you do
that? Well, one, I got tired of not making money from something that I felt like I was putting so much time and energy into. And I felt like being here, in particular in Indy, sometimes you can feel like you're not getting anywhere. You kind of feel like, maybe if I went to a larger city, I could go faster or whatever. And so I wanted to stop feeling like I wasn't moving. And for me, it was like, when I first got into commercial photography, I was not expecting to start a production studio. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to do it. How hard can it be? Very much always, how hard can it be? Not that hard. And so it kind of started like that. And so the fact that it transitioned to be something that I do for brands and it's how I like make money, it's just interesting because that's really not where I started. But I also think you can kind of, well, I think you can find something and be like, and then tweak it to make it how you want it to be, make it benefit you. You know, I think I had one idea of what commercial photography was. In actuality, it's like, actually, I don't have to do that if I don't want to.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So are you doing this full time now? So let's get into the nitty gritty. So something that I like to do on Make It Make Sense Mondays is, and I get this from Kiana Watson. She has a show with MG the Mortgage Guy on Earn Your Leisures Network called Ransom Gems. And something that she's always intentional with is giving the people something to walk away with. Because we can have a great conversation that excites people, but then they walk away like, dang, I have no idea what to do to capitalize on it. I have no idea what to do to take it away and apply it to my life. So can you give the people like 2 or 3 things that you did to be able to transition from, whether you go from side hustle to main hustle, or if you want to go deeper into this idea of how do I transition from a brand of a fashion photographer to having an extremely successful commercial photography brand, so much so I can create my own studio. Just 2 or 3 things that people can put in right now to the side hustlers because they need it. And I know you got the wisdom.
Okay, so big one, and this is obviously a way to do that, but networking. I used to be a very, very private, I'm still a very private person. Like, but when it comes to business, when it comes to talking about what people are passionate about, I really enjoy that. I really enjoy having conversations where you start to see where people are passionate and where they want to spend their time, because then it makes, hearing somebody talk about their dream, it makes you feel excited. And you're like, how can I help this person? And it also leads into like genuinely like, okay, so like if I hear that, okay, I know a copywriter, okay, but this person needs copyright. Oh, hey, it's easier to connect when I feel like you're excited and like connected to a person. So I got into Slack groups. I got into all different types of Slack groups. Like, I know some people are like, I'm not getting to another group. That's fine. But if there is ever something that you have, I just throw it on Slacks, and I have connections on different Slacks. And it's just how I've been able to connect. It's one of my favorite ways to connect. I've met so many people just through dropping something in like a random Slack group. And then, okay, unpopular opinion, but crowdfunding made such a large difference, not just, okay, yeah, the end goal, capital, right? But what you're also doing is you're giving people the opportunity to like understand and know more in depth what you're doing. So like for the longest time, I was like, nobody's supporting me. Does anyone like da, da, da? And it's like, it wasn't that nobody was supporting me. It was that, were you making it clear how you needed people to support you? Were you clear on what you were doing? And so through crowdfunding, it helps you develop so many things for your business. Like, yeah, the end goal is you raise capital, but you learn how to pitch yourself. You learn how to talk about your business in less than 30 seconds. You get coaching if that's the route you go through with it. The platform I used, you could get coaching. But there's so many things that you do. It teaches you how to launch. Like, it teaches you certain things that I don't think I would have gotten that experience if I didn't choose to be like, okay, I'm going to raise capital for something. And I also think it teaches us, especially as Black and brown people, that like there's nothing wrong with you talking about your business over and over and over and over and over again. I always felt like the entire time I crowdfunded for 3 months, which is a very long time. But I was always like, oh my God, people are annoyed. People don't want to hear this. Like, they don't care, girl. You talked about this 7 times today. But people cared. People were interested. People wanted to know. People were like, okay, how can I support you? How many days do you have left? Like, give people a chance to show up for you, I think it's something I'm still trying to learn to do, because it is a lot of vulnerability. By the time I was done crowdfunding, I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody for like a month because I just did a lot of talking. It was kind of exhausting, but it also opened a door for people to feel more comfortable to come to me and be like, how can I support you? Or how can I support Good Friends? Or what is Good Friends working on? Or things like that. Like, it's a lot. And if you don't have anything to crowdfund for, it may feel kind of like, why should I do that? But you also don't always need some grand thing you need to do to crowdfund. Sometimes you're just like, hey, we are trying to do this small initiative, but we don't have the working capital for that. Here's everything about my business I can share with you. Now you have people just looking at your business purely because you're crowdfunding. You get what I mean? Like, yes, capital, get your money, but also it allows people critical like steps on what you're doing and how you can pursue that and things like that. So I would say those are my big two, at least for me, those have been my biggest two for like the last 2 years, is that really like networking and like putting myself out there, especially digitally, has been great for me.
No, invaluable. So one quick recap for the people that's watching in case you just got lost in the gems. One, networking, relationship building, community building is extremely important. And Charlee really leveraged Slack to be able to do that among other resources. So that's number one. And then number two, crowdfunding, not just as a way to accrue capital, but as a way to build community. And I love this quote. Give people a chance to show up for you. Like this idea that I'm not going to say it again because I feel like people are going to be annoyed by whatever. Not what the people think, but I think I had an experience when I was in college where I got a dope opportunity and I didn't want to talk about it for exactly what you said. I felt like people were going to perceive it as bragging. People were going to perceive, all these different things, right? And this is what, and it was an older sister, right? An older Black woman. She said, when you don't tell people about your accomplishments, it's not even a disservice to you. Watch this. It's a disservice to the person who's supposed to be inspired from the move you just made. I was like, yo, because it's bigger than us. We can say that when we get the award or when we hit the milestone or we get to the goal. This is bigger than me. I did it for bigger than me. But what are you doing on that journey to embody that same idea that this is bigger than me? And every time that you go out there and you pitch your business, independent of whether or not you get an investment, independent of whether or not somebody gives you bread, if nothing else, your story inspires somebody to start theirs. And that then gets attributed to your brand. So they may not have given you $1, but the investment due to that relationship, oh my God, you got a customer for life. You got a community member for life. And like, that's not something that you can buy. So, loved that.
Yes. Like seriously, there were so many people that came into my network through crowdfunding that I've never met a day in my life, don't live in this city, don't live in this state, but was like, I'm so interested in what you're doing. I love that you're doing that. And it's like, this person does not know me. Like this person is halfway across the country talking about how excited they are for Blot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I wouldn't have gotten that if I didn't tell people about it. And it's scary and it's vulnerable and it can be at times very terrifying, but at the same time, it's like, well, do you want to do the thing you said you want to do, or are you just going to be like uncomfortable for like 20 minutes and then get over it,
No, you're right. Because it's gonna suck regardless. If there's anything that I learned over the last year and a half, it's gonna suck regardless. People gonna complain regardless. It's gonna be uncomfortable regardless. It's gonna suck regardless. Are you just gonna suck and you gonna get something from it, or is it gonna suck and you still gonna suck once you're done? Yeah. So 100% with you. Next question. And it's another one of these like 2 or 3 tips. Mm-hmm. You're an incredible creative. You're also an incredible Black creative. And we run the economy, like we run the world. Black creatives run the world. We have run the world. We are running the world, and we're going to continue to run the world because Black stories are commercialized, commoditized, capitalized, and criminalized at rates that nothing else is. That's why we have such incredible assets in our story. We understand that. But can you talk about what are the things that someone should keep in mind or look for when trying to work with a photographer or just a creative generally? Because I also feel as though there's a stigma attached to Black creatives. We're not timely. We're not quote unquote professional, which is a Eurocentric term anyway. So what's the real issue you have with me there? It's professional, a code word for other things, but there is a code of conduct that we should be doing good business by. And I think I know there's a stigma attached to Black creatives that we don't do good business. And as someone who not only does good business, but has built a beautiful business, what can you do to tell the people about things that great Black creatives who do good business, like things you should look for? Because I don't want people to think that we're not people that people should be working with. Does that make any sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does. Um, Drop it one more time for me. I think I got it, but I just want to make sure.
No, for sure. So, and I'll make it even more simple. When someone is looking to work with someone in your industry, what are the things they should be keeping in mind? If there are 2 or 3 things they should keep in mind, what should they be?
I'm going to give you 3 solid ones. 1, niche. Not every photographer does everything. And I feel like there is blame a little bit on both sides. Like sometimes photographers don't know what their niche is. So they'll do a few things and okay, you run into that. But if a photographer has a very clear niche, like you come to them, say they're super bright and bubbly, it's like, okay, so I know that I'm going to expect, or okay, Charlee Black, her work is usually kind of dark for her personal work. Okay, so I know I should expect, do not bring a different style to a niche photographer and then be like, do that for me. Well, that's not what they do. And if you really respect someone and if you really respect their craft, you will honor what they do. There have been times where I've been asked to shoot a certain way or do something, and at times I will bend, but most times it's like, that's not what I do. I don't feel comfortable. Here's someone I can recommend to you. And I do that because I like to do the work that I want more of. What's the point of dipping over here if that's not what I'm trying to do? I'm not trying to be a food photographer, so I'm not going to shoot a bunch of food. So here's someone else. Secondly, is that photographers, like, you'll kind of find that you'll find like a unicorn, like a photographer who does photo and video, right? Video, because it is so valuable on social media, we'll probably start to see this more, but video is going to lean a little higher. There tends to be this thing where people think like, okay, so photo and video, they're about the same, right? Like, and it's like, I can get a photo shoot done in like 3 hours. We can shoot video for 12 hours and then they can edit for 6 hours. Like, it is way more time consuming. It's way more detailed. You have to spend more time on it. Lighting requires something differently. So just understanding that those 2 things are different and they should be priced as different. They should be treated as different. Like, video is going to be expensive because of all of the work that goes into video. And then I think the last thing would be just working with photographers, creatives, vision, what have you, is that there's the work and then there's all the back end stuff. You see a small portion of what this person has to do. Whether that's shooting, whether you only see them for the shoot, there is so much other time that they spend culling images, looking through images, saving, exporting, retouching. And I know people kind of want, especially just with any creative field, people are going to attach their own perception of price or value onto them. But the thing is that you're only seeing a portion. So you can be like, oh, you're really high. And yeah, because you think I'm charging you for this. There's like all this over here. And I have to take care of that, because if I don't take care of that, I can't do this. And so it's something I'm even still working on, because I have always had a certain idea of what photography or video should cost. But what I'm still trying to learn how to do and trying to turn off is that there's like the price I feel comfortable with, and then there's the price. And I can either charge the price I'm comfortable with and potentially go in red, or I can charge the price and I feel comfortable and needs are met and bills are paid and people are paid out on time and those things happen. And so it's like, I understand we all kind of attach our own idea of value to something, but when they give you the quote, that's the quote. And if you really respect this person as much as you say or perceive, then you will either be like, you know what, that price, I understand your value. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I would love to move forward. Or you're like, hey, I appreciate the value. I understand your time. Like, you are very talented, but I can't afford that. And there is nothing wrong with either. But what you can't do is take your perceived idea of value and push that onto someone, and or think like, oh, you just, it's like, no, that's, there's no other field. You don't, you don't get your plumbing done and you're like, okay, actually, I feel like you only really taped out this, so actually I'm just gonna pay for that. That's not, you don't do that with anything else. But for whatever reason, we do that with creativity and creative jobs, because we tend to think they're more lax. We tend to think they're more chill, or, oh, this isn't your real job. It's like, this is my you know what I mean? This is like my real job. Like, so, and I want it to continue to be, but it's not sustainable. It doesn't show that you respect creatives when you argue with them about the perceived value versus the value.
Dropping so many gems. Do you have a Twitter?
I don't. You know what? I got off Twitter because I was like, I don't need to hear everybody's thoughts. That's not good for me.
That's right.
But I hear that Twitter is like probably like it's time to circle back. But I'm just like, oh, I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of brutal.
Only reason I was, and you're right. Only reason I was asking was because, so I'm heavy on Instagram, heavy on LinkedIn, but I'm also heavy on Twitter, and they all serve different purposes. And something I love to do is when I hear things that like really provoke things in my mind, or like they resonate with me deeply, I like to quote them and then tag the person who said it, because I have a decent platform, you know what I mean, and it provides people the opportunity to see a different side of the person I'm tagging, and then it helps them grow their community. So I was just going to do that because a couple of quotes you said that were fantastic, and then I'm going to recap kind of what you said. One, I love the idea of do the work you want more of. Oh my God, that was fantastic. That was absolutely fantastic. And then I love what you also said was when you give the quote, that's the quote. And it's funny because that's a double entendre. When you give the quote, that's the quote, as if, because I'm quoting something right now. So people can think that the quote I'm talking about is a statement, but it's like, actually, I'm talking about the quote in this business term, right? And I love that. And also this idea that why do we respect, because that's really what it is. Why do we respect the numbers? Again, because we're not just talking about creatives, we're talking about Black creatives. Why do we respect the white doctor's quote? Why do we respect the white dentist quote? Why do we respect the white plumber's quote? But then when you hire your supposed friend or peer or person that you love their work so much, and then they tell you what it costs, and then it's a question, and you wouldn't dare question none of these other people, but you feel like you have the power and autonomy and your right, the standing, the privilege. That's what it is. The question is. So I appreciated that. And I think it goes back to exactly what you said with these 3 different tips, starting with your niche, right? So you said, like, one, you have to know what it is that they do. And I think also as a creative, stand on what you do. And when you get opportunities that are outside of your, and like I was just having this conversation with somebody, and I understand because people don't respect Black creatives. So it's hard to make money if you don't know your niche and you don't have a proper business strategy. And if you need one, make sure you hit me up. But again, like that's hard to do. And so there's this pull to say, I got to pay my bills. So I'm going to step outside of my artistry, outside of my creative space to do something because I need to get my bills paid. But then at the same time, what brand are you building, or what brand are you destroying because of what opportunities are you taking? So one, Charlie talked about niche. Then 2, so I did that photo and video are different. And I think one of the easiest ways to encapsulate it is a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's a hell of a lot of words, but a video's worth 1,000,000. And so if we're going to talk about number of words, and again, Black stories are the assets that break generational curses and build generational wealth. That's a hell of a lot of words in a video. A lot of words in a photo. Hell of a lot of words in the video, though. And if we were charging rightfully for our words, these videos are going to cost more than these photos. And it's not because photographers are not the bomb.com, because they are. There's nothing like an incredible photo. But there's some work that's required in a video that is just not required for a photo, which brings Charlie to the last point that she mentioned. And it was that there's so much that you don't see. And again, I just want to challenge the people that are watching. The next time you need a photo shoot for your LinkedIn profile for your corporate job, and you hire a Black creative to be able to do it, or you're trying to figure out how to make more money because your corporate job won't pay you enough, and you hire a Black creative to build your website, or the next time that you're looking to get food because the Chick-fil-A doesn't cut it for you anymore, or the same restaurants you go to downtown that cost $50 for flavorless food ain't cutting anymore, so you go to Black creative to do it, right? Understand that they're not charging you just for the food. One, they're charging you for the competition that you normally don't come to, right? They're charging you for what it takes to season that food and season their artistry, because you're getting a lot of flavorless stuff elsewhere. And these aren't the things that you see. All you see is the plate. Again, I think that's a great way to describe what you said. You're not just paying for the plate. There's a kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
15 million people back there, and it's hot. The grease is popping. It's loud. Lots of hazards. That's what creates what you see on that plate. And you better not be mad at somebody for the cost of the plate, because it's not the cost of the plate, it's the cost of the experience.
Right.
And it takes money to make money. So, yo, loved, loved, loved. This is an incredible conversation. I really appreciate you for your time. This is good.
Yes. No, thank you for having me. I've been loving it. This is great.
This is good. So, next question. Let's get a little bit deeper into you. Right? You
Mhm.
talked about knowing your niche, and also I want to talk about kind of like what sets your company apart. So, we got good friends, and you've had great friends. You've had good friends for a very long time.
Yep.
But now
Almost
you
2 years.
exactly, and now you got this thing called block, which is this physical space. So I want to make sure that people know the difference, right? Good friends is the work. Blocked is the space in which the work is being done. And there's a whole new economic opportunity for our community that comes from block, because now it's not just good friends. There's good friends coming in the block. They're not good friends, if you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk about what separates your company? What separates good friends from other folks in the space?
I think we have a, I think we really believe in visuals and taking a brand from one place to another. For me, it's the most exciting part. Like, yeah, there's a entire process that goes into doing that. But for me, it's the in looking back and being like, we transformed this brand. This brand is not what it was when it came to me or when it came to us. And so for me, it's like, I think that is what helps us stand out, is that we are creating visuals that really speak to these brands that they would not have gotten anywhere else because of who we are and the people we work with. As much as I could be like, oh my God, it's me, it's like, no, I work with multiple really, really talented creatives who really bring an essence to our shoots that I feel like really reads directly us. Like I don't know another production studio that has our same vibe and our same feel. And I want to attest that to who I want to say I am and how I've tried to position this brand, We're your good friends. Like, you're gonna come over here and get like a whole, and you're gonna love it. Like, you're gonna enjoy that experience. So I think that is really what sets us apart. We're about the name. Like, the name rings true.
Yeah, there's power in the name. There's power in the name, and I love the name that y'all chose. And to kind of go back to something that you said before, and I know you mentioned it at the front of the interview, I just kind of want to revisit it. What kinds of brands do y'all love to work with?
Oh yeah. So since we are primarily working with like fashion, beauty, and wellness brands, they're gonna sit more like we have multiple jewelry clients, skincare clients, body care, candles, like handbags, shoes, things like that. Usually things that are tend to be more, yeah, like accessory, beauty, wellness based.
No, that's good. I just appreciate the fact that y'all know who it is that y'all are best positioned to serve. And again, to the people that's watching, you've heard me say this time and time again. There are plenty of people, plenty of creatives and brands and companies that can benefit from what Good Friends is doing, right? But there's a particular kind of a person that space was made for. And I think we can take a step outside of the business talk and think about as Black people our experience. There's plenty of spaces that we can walk into and we can succeed, right? We've been doing that. But there's nothing like a Black space. There's nothing like a space that was made for us. It feels different. It hits different. It tastes different, right? And part of what a good business, part of what good friends do, that's why good friends is a good business, is they have a product that so many people can benefit from, but they made the product for a particular kind of a person. And that person, I would assume, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is probably your best ambassador, right? The fashion, the beauty, and the wellness brands, they probably go the distance and really advocating for the work because they feel like they have a space that was made specifically for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I think working with someone who understands, like, a lot of my clients are of course Black women. So we're talking and we're like, okay, so we want it to be positioned this way, and we're doing it, you know, pulling references from like mothers and aunts. Like it's just a very, it's a really nice experience to have in a business that you created, because I can't name any other job I've ever had that made me feel like that, or where that voice is heard. Whereas in certain professional settings, I did not always feel this forthcoming or this um, open to share even ideas, because that wasn't fostered, that wasn't accepted, that was maybe looked down on. Like the things I had to deal with when I was working like for other people are kind of some of my bigger strengths in good friends. Like I was always told you're a little direct, you're kind of blunt, you kind of you know, but my clients love that. My clients love that I cut to the chase and that I'm not beating around the bush, and they like that I'm direct. It's not seen as intimidating or whatever. They see that as like, okay, this is my equal, but she wants to get something done. It's like, it's interesting having that shift from being called certain things, maybe in negative connotations in workspaces, to like, oh, that's actually, this helps me with my job, or this helps me with good friends. Like, yeah, I tend to be very focused, and like, but for some people that can be like, oh, you're not, you know, social, but it's like, no, I just want to get the thing done. So it's been interesting to kind of unlearn some work stuff. I think that going back, you kind of mentioned like maybe something you would want to tell, and I think that would be maybe my third one, is like, you will have to unlearn some things that you learned in those job settings. Some of those things you learned in those job settings are not going to help you on this entrepreneur self, working for yourself freelance journey. You're going to have to unlearn some stuff, because not everything you've learned over there was correct. Some of that was perception. Some of that was, you know, don't be too outside the box in your job. You know what I mean? Like you're going to have to unlearn some things when you switch over.
Mm, that's so real. And you're right. You transitioned perfectly to the next question you just gave me. Right. I was going to ask a word of encouragement, piece of advice, or a lesson you learned a little bit too late. And decided you got to unlearn some things. And I really love what you said there for a lot of reasons. But one of which being, you could be called something in one context and it means something completely different than it is in another context. And I think that's part of the reason why your stubbornness that you talked about earlier, really, I think is just your drive and your passion. Because there's a lot of people who walk into a room and the room responds a certain way and they think what they're doing is wrong instead of questioning the room. And that goes back to niche. A lot of people are just walking into the wrong rooms. You got a great product, you got a great service, you're just talking to the wrong people. And a lot of people, and this is a word, you know what I'm saying? This is Charlie's word. I'm just putting it in Murdoch's words, right? A lot of y'all are walking into the wrong rooms and you're saying you're doing the wrong things instead. It's not the thing you're doing, it's the room that you're in. And we got to get you in these rooms. And I think that's one of the reasons why Block is such a beautiful thing, because it's our room. Like it was a room made for us and by us and intentional, and it's unapologetic. And I can't wait for y'all to come to Block in the spring of 2022, because we definitely finna be there. We finna blow that place out for sure. But seriously, like, I think that's an incredible piece of advice. Like, there's gonna be some things you have to unlearn as you go on your journey, right? And something else that we subscribe to within the side hustle economy community is that we don't lose, we just learn. So every minute we're winning or we're learning. And I think that your story and what you shared so far genuinely embodies that. And I think it is in large part why you can walk around and talk your talking and do what you do the way that you do. So I appreciate your energy for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. I tried.
Yeah. So last two questions for you. Something I talked about at the beginning was in our mission for the Side Hustle Economy Company, right? We talk about exposure, education, and equipment. So we expose people to things worth dreaming about. Then we teach people how to achieve it. And then we equip them to turn those dreams into reality. When you think about your own journey through entrepreneurship, through creativity as a Black woman, which one of those E's played the biggest role and why?
I almost want to say equip. And the reason I say that is because for me personally, I like before I knew what Blot was going to be called, before I made the design plans with like an online designer, I wrote everything down. Um, Sometimes I think as creatives, like we like to think, okay, I'm creative, so it's just gonna hit me and I'm just gonna be amazing. And it's like, so write some stuff down. Like it's helpful to really work through your thoughts. I know for me, I have a ton of thoughts that are always going and moving. There are like a million tabs open and I'm trying to close them all. And sometimes writing them down helps that. It helps. What did Erica Badu say? Write it on some paper and watch it get real or something like that. Like writing stuff down helps you think it out more. It helps you kind of work through it. And I feel like that's part of how I equip myself for big things, for big plans. Like before I do anything, I'm writing it down. I need to look at it on some paper and be like, okay, yeah, that's what I want to do. I know that's not the thing for everybody, but I would say for me, that's definitely what I tend to do. So I would say equip.
That's so real. And you know what? When I go around and talk to people about the side hustle economy company and why we do what we do and how we doing it and why it's important and who we do it for, that's the piece similar to what you said. Equip is what separates us apart. Because one of the things about 2021 that wasn't as prevalent in 1921 or 1821 or 17 or 16 and beyond was how many images of Black excellence and Black success and this beautiful, bold Blackness that we can see as soon as we turn on our phone that 100 years ago couldn't have seen, 20 years ago. Black has been beautiful and bold and excellent since forever because, we are the Genesis. However, the ability for us to be able to see that outside of what you're looking inside of the mirror is more present now than ever. And so the exposure is there. And then two, right, student loans are a thing. And that continues to like hinder people from seeing success. So this idea of being educated, no, everyone does not have access, but a hell of a lot of people do. And we're investing in it year after year after year. And oftentimes we don't get the return that we were promised when we like locked in for that first note. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But this equipment piece, right? Whether we're talking about capital, right, and getting access to having positive banking relationships or venture capital or just having people who want to invest into your business or some of these technical assistance providers like attorneys and accountants and marketers, we don't have access to that. And we have a lot less access to this stuff than we do these things. And so part of what we pride ourselves on as a company is equipping. We're not just going to expose you and inspire you and teach you how to achieve it. We're going to give you the tools that you need to turn that dream into a reality. And so when you talk about equipping being the biggest of the 3 E's for you, sister, I stand in solidarity for that because the moment I became equipped, you know what happens too? Like when you get equipped, you get inspired again. And you like start the process over and over again because you see a whole different room and a whole different vision that you didn't even know was achievable. So I think equip is my biggest E too.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I just feel like when I write something down, it just it's no longer this idea. Like now it's on paper. Okay. So now, we can start putting action. You know what I mean? It just kind of gets you going that I feel like in a way that just thinking it like, oh, I'm gonna create a studio and then just sitting back for 6 months. Like, okay, but like, what else? Like, what's the plan? How do you get there? Like, what's the next step? You can do that through writing it down. Whether you type it out, whatever, writing it down seems to be better for me. But like, yeah, that's how I just love it. It's such a gratifying experience to reach a goal, like work for something, reach that goal, you got it. Now you can open back and look at that page where you said, oh, this is what I was going to do. I did that today, actually. I looked at the notebook and I saw the investment breakdown for Blot. And I was like, am I really up in here? Like, yeah. It's just like, okay. It's a if you tend not to clap for yourself, it's very good to have it written down because it's like, okay, whatever, you're not gonna clap for yourself. That's weird, you should, but you can see it in this notebook and you know that you put in the work to get there. It's helpful. You need those little thumbs up. You really do need that, especially pursuing anything, but really creative, because you'll just kind of lose it. You'll lose that spark if you don't find it and hold on to it.
I love that. You're talking about stories. That's what you're doing for real. You're talking about like writing, because again, that thing you write down that holds you accountable to pursuing that vision and turning that into a plan that leads to goals and individual tasks that lead to goals that leads to the vision, that's a story, right? Like when you write down that first, to treat that like the first sentence, the topic sentence of a new paragraph. And again, to go back to context, a lot of us are conned out of opportunities because we never wrote nothing down. And if we did, we lost it, or it was burned, or it was stolen, or it was changed and manipulated to make us think that we didn't start where we started with nothing and turn nothing into something that became the world's everything. And that's what we're doing. That's what you did with Block. You know what I'm saying? You took nothing. Like you took nothing. And you took a product or a service that did not have a home outside of the framework of your mind and the team that you assembled. And you took that into this thing. And you've modeled that thing and maneuvered that thing, and you've built community around that thing. And now the community can benefit from what you've built. And that couldn't have started without that topic sentence. That couldn't have started without you saying, I'm going to declare this to be truth today. And I'm going to do whatever the hell I got to do to bring it to life. And I think that leads up, to the last question. I mean, every time we get somebody on Make It Make Sense Monday, we ask, what does Make It Make Sense mean to you? And I think that you can take so many different angles from what it means because you have so many incredible experiences and you have so many more experiences to have and create for other people. But if you had to answer that question right now, what would Make It Make Sense mean to you?
So through crowdfunding, I had access to like a coach. And one of the things she said that like really stuck with me was people will get behind you, sure, like they'll get behind you, but like they'll get behind you more when it feels like when you are helping more than just yourself. People are more likely to support something that's not so self-serving. Like, are you going to help other people? Like, okay. And so for me, Make It Make Sense is the dream and the goal cannot just be about you. And I know that seems kind of counterproductive. Like, it's my dream. And but it needs to be bigger than you. And it needs to help and it needs to affect and it needs to change people other than you, because that is how it leads to other little blessings. That's how it leads to other opportunities. Like when you do something just for yourself, sure, it could be great and you could be good and you're like, yes, amazing. But if you make it so that other people can benefit from it and other people can learn from it or be a part of it or whatever, it makes what you're working on just that much bigger. And for me personally, I tend to think when I do that, more sense comes in because it's not just me talking about it. Now there are 20 other people talking about it. And you get what I mean? Like, it needs to be bigger than you because it'll be more lucrative if it's bigger than you. And I think sometimes you can get kind of caught up in like, it's mine and I need to hold it close to me. But like, it will do better if other people are affected and helped. Like, it will do a lot more than if it was just you.
I love it. Make It Make Sense means it's got to be bigger than you. And you're so right. From a business perspective, that's true. You increase your market size when it's bigger than you, which makes the market capitalization greater, which makes it more attractive to investors. So if you're just looking at it from a purely financial perspective, making it bigger than you, it's always the goal. Mm-hmm. But there's also this other piece, and I feel like you just know what it means. Because when we first came up with the brand, Make It Make Sense, it's really a statement. And it has 3 different meanings, right? So let's talk about the sense up here. And I think that's where the vision, the ideation happens, right? But then you got to be able to monetize it, right? Which is your transition from fashion to the commercial piece. And isn't it beautiful how you transition from this to that, only to go right back to what really mattered to you the most? Isn't that a beautiful thing, sister?
Mm-hmm. It is.
But then you go from the sense to the sense. And then what you talked about is that sensational impact all across the senses. And that's really what the sense is about. But you can't make that impact, that sensational impact, if it's not doing this and it's not doing this.
Completely.
I think your story, and this is why I'm thankful for this conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I've been waiting for this. I appreciate you being willing to postpone it and adjust based on the scheduling. But there's a spirit in you that I can appreciate, and I can't wait for us to be able to connect in person and continue to build in person. But there's just going to be so much that people are going to glean from you, so that folks can kind of better understand what Black creatives in Indianapolis are creating right now. Right? Even if they don't understand your entire business, and y'all will, trust me, I'm gonna make it clear. But they're gonna understand why it's important, and they're gonna see its importance through you and through your work and through your energy and through your spirit. So I've said it a million times, but to end it, I just really want to say thank you for your time and thank you for your energy and for sharing your story. Deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. What? No, thank you for having me. This has been such a conversation. Like, thank you. And no, perfect timing. Everything is always perfect timing. There's never a need to apologize for timing. It happened exactly when it needed to happen.
It is real. Well, look, y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in for another episode of Make It Make Sense Mondays. Can you please tell them how to follow you and tap in with all you got going on?
Yes. Okay. So you can follow me at Charlee Black, CharleeBlk on Instagram. You can click the link in the bio and see all of my things. Goodfriends.studio, blockcreative.studio on Instagram, all one word. And yeah, just out here creating visuals, no big deal.
Big blessings. We're going to include all that in the YouTube description. So make sure y'all stay tapped in for the playback on this. And we'll send it out via our email newsletter too. Y'all have a magnificent Monday. And we'll see y'all next week for another episode.